Alright guys, so I know this is a bit of a surprise, a bit of a late upload from me. Normally I upload in the mornings, and don't worry, I still will upload tomorrow morning, but they dropped the Christmas Lotto at a pretty reasonable hour. I mean, I know it's pretty much midday for the people over on JP time, but for us, it's still like not exactly nighttime. It's still like not super late. It's not 5:30 in the morning when I normally have to record, JP content going live. So I do really appreciate that. And the other thing that I really appreciate is getting all of the free-to-play Nemo's details right off the bat. So we automatically already know everything this guy's doing. Don't have to wait a single day. And I find that to be very nice. We know that he is an AoE arts writer, which I guess is kind of nice because the original one is a single target arts writer, so they made this guy more of a farmer, but they also gave him really good applications in some of the weirder nodes that we've been getting. Sure, you can bring him to CQs because he has a nice power mod, but also you can bring him to some of those bleached earth quests, in Ordeal Call, where you can kind of travel around, because a lot of those can be very weird, more gimmicky fights that people like Nemo will start to get a bit more usage in, right? Like, we've all been asking for stages where single targets or these AoEs that have these more CQ oriented kits to get more, stages to use them in. And I think we're starting to see more and more of that, as long as they keep updating that and keep giving us more Bleached Earth quests, more advanced quests, which we haven't seen in a long time, and obviously more CQs and stuff like that. But he has applications for both. But since we already, everything that he's done, I've already kind of glanced over it, so I could kind of go over it a little bit easier in this video. So I'll just go over his skills as per usual. His first skill over here, this, if you're going to be using him as a farming servant, you're probably going to save for wave 3, because obviously it's not something you're going to like get a short cooldown on, and it's going to give you that big NP damage buff, a little bit of extra attack, which is also going to be very nice for this in particular. If you have Oberon and you're like plug suiting him in, I think it would be an absolute killer with that, because obviously Oberon's third skill ups the amount of NP damage buffs that, how strong they actually are. And so getting that plus a potential Black Grail that you might have gotten for free if you were playing during the 7th anniversary. So that could be very, very strong for this guy. But one of the things that I find very weird is we have this new tag called Group Servants, which he is technically not on, but also the Rider version of him, the OG 5-star, that's also not on here, which I kind of get what they're going for. It's all duo servants, right? It's always a guy that has another dude on their, card art or whatever. It's like two people fighting together. But that's kind of the whole point of Nemo, no, right? Like, that's kind of the whole thing. You fire the NP and it's like a bunch of little Nemos running around and like piloting the ship. But I guess it's the same reason that Iskandar's not on here, because Iskandar, you only see those other guys that he summons with his NP on his NP, so he wouldn't qualify for this either, which I think is interesting, but also really funny that he kind of supports people that he himself is like not on the tag of, which I think is a little bit funny. But I guess it's like a Jalter dragon situation where, Jalter buffs dragons, but for some reason is also not a dragon herself, which, by the way, Lasengel, give her that tag. Let's get that 40% attack buff for Jalter. I promise I can be trusted with it. But it's a very, very strong skill, just popping it for the third wave whenever you're using him for farming, or just when you need to kind of close out a fight whenever you're bringing him to CQs. It can be very strong for that. The second skill is what I mean by more of a, CQ-oriented, weird, like, gimmick-style fight, because he gives himself a solid guts. It's a fat 3k guts that, last for 3 turns, which we like to see. Some of these servants do get like the 1-turn guts. It's very weird when it happens, but I don't like it. I like having this little security blanket over my units whenever I'm using them, which is nice. He also just gives himself buff immunity flat out for 3 turns, which I love to see. I love when my servants have just a blanket turn, or 3 turns even, of debuff immunity, because sometimes you get those like 1 instance of debuff immunity for 3 turns, which can be nice. But if you're gonna be in those more, weird quests where they're going to be spamming, defense downs, attack downs, stuns, charms, all these annoying things, it is just nice to just kind of throw your hand up and be like, none of that is going to be affecting me at all in this fight, which I do like to see. I like that they gave him not only really good survivability, also notably something that Castoria doesn't provide is a gut specifically. She gives you, invul and solemn defense, but this is another way in case you run through all of those, or the enemy has Pierce invincibility, something along those lines. You have a way to keep yourself alive, but also you get around the other thing that Castoria can cleanse your debuffs, but you can also prevent yourself from getting debuffed in the first place. So I like that there's kind of this overlapping synergy And then he's also giving himself 10% NP every single turn. So, Castori's got you covered with immediate NP, but you also have a little bit of that sustain that just in case you're not looping just quite well enough, you do have this bonus 10% that you get every single turn, which again, can be very nice in more difficult content, more gimmicky content, but also as a farmer, let's say you don't have stuff like Black Grail, where you're farming a really weird 90 plus node, sometimes that extra 10% does come in clutch. Look at somebody like Zenobia, who does not have a battery at all whatsoever, who pretty much relies on the 20% she gets at the end of every turn. That's very clutch. It's like the whole reason Zenobia is able to farm, because she'll refund like 80%, then end of the turn, boom, give herself 20%, and she's ready to go on the next wave. So don't discount this. It's also going to be very nice, regardless if you want to use him in weird quests or if you want to use him in a farming quest or something along those lines. And then finally, we have the third skill. This is just kind of like the good stuff. I mean, the arts buff is going to be good in general. He's an art servant, duh. Having an arts buff is going to be solid. And 30% for 3 turns is pretty nice. I mean, if you think it's a little bit low, don't worry, it's fine. You got Castoria. Castoria will give him, the extra 50% plus the NP gain and all that good stuff. So he'll be A-okay. He also gives the evasion to the entire party, which I do like. It almost gives you that Merlin or Proto-Merlin type effect if you're bringing, say, like a double Castoria or a Castoria Tamamo feel, where you kind of have a baby version of the AoE Nope skill, the illusion, that you can kind of protect everybody, which can be nice, because in some of these challenge quests, sometimes you do not have Castoria's third skill or NP ready to go, and sometimes you can get caught with your pants down, and so having this evasion can be nice. Or if you just need to stall like an extra hit on one of your guys, it can also just be very strong. And then again, also giving 10% to the entire party, that's not nothing. That's good. All of the art support units have very strong NPs. Think of Tamamo, think of Miss Crane, think of Castoria, think of your Proto-Merlin. I know Miss Crane's not like specifically, by the way, an art support unit, but you get what I'm saying. Even Waver is someone you could bring in your art setups, and he's got a very strong NP. You could bring Reigns. All of these guys you would bring to your setups are all going to be very, very strong. I mean, even if you wanted to bring OG Merlin for some reason, even his NP is really good. Like, maybe that's all you got. His NP is still very nice. And so helping your supports get to their NP, I love it when offensive servants can do this. When they actually give real buffs to their supports. Because sometimes it's like, oh, here's a charisma. I'm like, yeah, thanks. My Merlin is really going to go hard as DPS Merlin right now. He's really just going to slam the enemy, I guess. But I love when they do things that are very meaningful, right? They actually give them, protection. They give them NP gauge. I think that is very, very strong. And it's why I'm very excited to test this unit out and a lot of those weird gimmicky nodes that we have for Ordeal Call. Because that's kind of like re-challengeable, kind of gimmicky hard content, I guess you could say. I know that I use the King Proteo one a lot because I think it's very fun to just, have a like big beefy enemy that's in a very weird class to kind of just throw guys at and see how well they do against some big large person, right? But that's not it. We also have his NP, which, as I mentioned earlier, does have a power mod. He does just have like a nice alignment evil thing. I don't have it pulled up on Atlas, but I have it pulled up on the wiki because I think this is a little bit easier to see. Because no offense, Atlas, but they list it kind of, in order like this right here, and it can be a little bit hard to kind of visualize when it's, just them all listed out. But you have a nice swath of guys you're able to hit here. Not the craziest bunch of people, right? It's not like you're going to be using them against everybody, but it's also not nothing. I mean, you do see, again, like the Lost Bill guys appear in some free quest nodes. You see the Shinjuku guys appear sometimes in farming nodes. You'll see them crop up. And again, all of these servants are pretty much free eats, aside from the assassins, really. But even then, with the Ereshkigal run against Benny Enma, I hope I did show that even if you want to do that, it is possible. And that run was definitely possible if Benny Enma did not just triple crit, our Ereshkigal over there. That was definitely a possible run. But yeah, you can bring him to any one of these CQs. If you see like a Jax pop up in one of these fights, you can bring him to that, and that could be very strong as a free-to-play option, because you might not have somebody that's good to, say, taking down Jax in this example. And so you could bring out Nemo for that. That's very good. And then as far as farming is concerned, 51% NP gain in 4 hits, that's pretty solid. Like, that's pretty in line with good arts farmers. Could it be a little bit better? Could he have like 60% NP refund? Like, sure, he could have that. But again, let's remember that he's giving 10% back on his second skill, and he has the 10% battery on his skill 3. And plus, you're pairing him with Castoria. he's going to be fine. He's going to be a-okay. And then this, again, I like that he has a little bit of an application when going into these weird nodes, that he can skill seal all the enemies, which can be very nice. You know, it can prevent them from doing some, I don't know, you guys saw in the Kagetora thing where she would just start spamming skills and, you know, start spamming dodges or, you know, spamming her NP skill. That can get very annoying. You know, it could be very nice if you can actually prevent that and hard stop them from, you know, engaging in, you know, all of their skills that are generally pretty strong. We do actually have an interesting passive. Like, these are kind of whatever, like the divinity and the riding skills, like, it's whatever. But we do have the Nemo effect I get over here. We do, I'm not exactly able to tell what this was when I did look at it, but it looks like he does give himself a crit buff and he gives himself a defensive buff if you're on field, shore, or void space. I'm imagining that's what that is and how that's kind of like listed over here, because again, it's kind of like a newer skill, so they can't just, you know, implement it as per usual. But it does look like he gets a little bit of a crit buff and a little bit of damage cut, which is nice if you're on those battlefields. You don't really see those all that often. They're not the most common things for you to be going into, which is kind of the issue with normal Nemo and why, like, his damage can fluctuate very, like, rapidly. But I think this guy's going to be fine without it. You know, go figure, 6% crit is not going to break this character. But it'll be nice when he does have it. You know, that 300 damage cut might, you know, make you live a hit or something that you would have normally gotten splattered by. But I think this guy's very solid. If you're playing JP, definitely keep your eyes out on this guy. Farm the event. I know, don't go too hard on the farming nodes already, because, you know, you want to make sure you get this guy. This guy does look like he will be a very solid option. And I'm glad they're giving us just another strong free-to-play. Is he the best free-to-play of the year? Probably not. I do think I like Saika a little bit better, but I might also be a little bit biased because Saika's really adorable, so that might just be my bias speaking, and I use her a lot. So, I don't know. I'll test him out a little bit more, and if I really feel so inclined, maybe I'll come back to you guys with, like, an evaluation. But I think I can pretty confidently look at this server and just say he's going to be a very solid free-to-play farmer, and if you want to bring him to CQs, he has some applicability. Again, that skill 2 and that skill 3 kind of just give good overlap with, say, Castoria skills specifically, which is going to be the main art support you're going to be bringing. So I do like that he meshes very, very well with that Castoria. But let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. I got to start farming the event. So I'm going to get out of here. Peace. Late, guys.